Stop. Put that chocolate bar down. I know what you're thinking. It's just chocolate. It's a treat. I've been eating it my whole life and it's fine. But here's the thing. The chocolate sitting in your hand right now. There's a very good chance it isn't actually chocolate. Not real chocolate anyway. And the companies making it are banking on the fact that you never stop to ask. I spent weeks tearing through ingredient lists, digging into supply chains, and comparing what these brands used to be with what they've quietly become. What I found made my stomach turn. We're talking about products packed with industrial vegetable oils instead of cocoa butter. We're talking about palm oil destroying rainforests while children as young as 5 are working on cocoa farms in West Africa. And we're talking about corporations that have spent decades convincing Australians that this stuff is harmless, nostalgic, trustworthy, when in reality, most of it barely qualifies as chocolate at all. Australian food standards allow products with as little as 20% cocoa to carry the word chocolate on the label. 20%. In Europe, that number is 35. That's not a minor technicality. That's a loophole that the biggest players in this industry have exploited to fill our supermarket shelves with sugar, vegetable fat, and a handful of cocoa solids dressed up in familiar packaging. The worst part, these aren't some no-name brands you've never heard of. These are the purple wrappers, the ones you grew up with, the ones your parents bought, the ones that are supposed to feel like home. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which 6 brands to walk straight past and which 4 are actually worth your money. This isn't about being picky. This is about knowing what you're actually putting in your body. And trust me, once you see what's hiding behind these labels, you will never look at the chocolate aisle the same way again. Let's get into it. Starting at number 6. Number 6. Darrell Lea. Now, Darrell Lea is one of those brands that hits differently for Australians. Founded back in 1927, it's been a part of our food landscape for almost a century. There's genuine heritage here, or at least there used to be. Because here's what happened. Darrell Lea got acquired by Quinn's back in 2012, and since then, the quality has quietly, steadily fallen apart. Pick up a block of modern Darrell Lea chocolate, and the first thing you'll notice is the sweetness. It's cloying, overwhelming. Nothing like the rich, layered taste people remember from the original recipe. And there's a reason for that. The cocoa content in modern Darrell Lea sits at just 25 to 30%, depending on the variety. The rest, sugar, vegetable fats, and palm oil. The same cheap industrial filler that's showing up everywhere in this industry. They've swapped out cocoa butter for vegetable oil to cut costs. The texture gives it away immediately. It's waxy. It doesn't melt the way real chocolate should. It sits on your tongue instead of dissolving, leaving behind a greasy, almost artificial residue that lingers long after you've swallowed. At around $5 for a 188-gram block, you'd think you were getting a decent product from a trusted Australian name. You're not. You're getting a corporate cost-cutting exercise wrapped in heritage branding. The new owners are trading on nearly 100 years of reputation while delivering a fraction of the quality that built it. The original Darrell Lea, genuinely good. An Australian staple worth defending. What's on the shelf today? A shadow of what it once was, and a painful reminder that buying a brand isn't the same as buying quality. Number 5. Lindt. Lindt plays a different game than the others on this list. While Cadbury and Mars lean into nostalgia and affordability, Lindt leans into prestige. The gold foil, the master chocolatier branding, the premium price tag. Everything about the way Lindt markets itself says, this is the good stuff. This is what chocolate is supposed to be. But here's the part that will genuinely catch you off guard. Not all of it lives up to that reputation. Let's start with the excellence bars sold in Australian supermarkets. Lindt doesn't make it obvious, but not every bar under the Lindt name is manufactured in Switzerland. Some excellence products are produced in Germany and Austria, using different processes and different standards than the Swiss-made versions. The packaging doesn't scream this information at you. You have to flip it over and read the fine print on the back. Most people never do, so you're paying a premium, around $14.50 per 100 grams, for what you assume is Swiss-quality chocolate. But it might not be, and Lindt knows that assumption is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for them. Now, the white chocolate and the Lindor balls. That's where things get even more uncomfortable. Crack open a Lindor ball and take a good look at that filling. Vegetable fats, palm kernel oil, coconut oil. Real white chocolate is simple. Cocoa butter, sugar, milk solids. That's it. There is no reason, none, for cheap vegetable fillers to be in a product that charges master chocolatier prices. And even the Swiss-made Lindt hasn't escaped scrutiny. Their cocoa supply chain traces back to West African farms where child labor has been documented. At premium prices, you'd expect ethical sourcing to be a given. It isn't. Number 4. Mars. Mars bars have been an Australian staple since 1932, nearly a century of iconic status. They used to be hefty, substantial, satisfying, a proper treat that felt like something. But the Mars bar you buy today is a completely different animal from the one your parents grew up with. The current Australian Mars bar weighs in at just 47 grams. That's a reduction of over 20% from its peak size. And what's the excuse? Mars has actually tried to frame this as a health move, a commitment to reducing calorie counts per serving. Let that sink in for a second. They sell you significantly less product for the same price and present it as doing you a favor. But the shrinking is only half the story. The chocolate coating itself is the real problem. It's only about 25% cocoa. The rest is a cocktail of sugar, glucose syrup, milk solids, vegetable fat, palm oil, and artificial flavor. Reading the ingredient list on a Mars bar doesn't feel like reading a food label. It feels like reading a chemistry experiment. And that palm oil isn't coming from nowhere. Mars sources it from suppliers in Indonesia and Malaysia, regions where rainforest destruction is rampant, and orangutan habitats are being flattened to make room for plantations. The company has made big sustainability promises. They keep missing the deadlines. At just over $1 per bar, Mars feels cheap. But the real cost is paid by the ecosystems being destroyed and the communities being exploited to keep that price where it is. A Mars bar is junk food with an ethical problem built right into its DNA. Number 3. Arnott's Tim Tam. This one stings. Tim Tams are Australian royalty. They're sold overseas as a premium biscuit. They represent our food culture on the world stage. The Tim Tam slam is practically a rite of passage. So when I tell you what's actually in the chocolate coating, it's going to feel like a betrayal. Flip a pack of Tim Tams over and look at that ingredient list. The chocolate coating contains only 18 to 20% cocoa. 18%. That isn't legally chocolate in a lot of countries around the world. What it is compound chocolate, a technical term that basically means vegetable oil mixed with cocoa powder, engineered to mimic the look and taste of the real thing. And there it is, right there on the label, palm oil. Soy lecithin, emulsifiers. Sugar sitting where cocoa mass should be. The coating on a Tim Tam isn't made from cocoa butter. It's made from vegetable oil that's been processed to behave roughly like chocolate without actually being chocolate. That's why Tim Tams have that texture. You know the one. Slightly waxy, doesn't quite melt the way proper chocolate does. It coats your mouth instead of dissolving cleanly on your tongue. Real chocolate has a specific melting point, around 34 degrees Celsius, just below body temperature. Vegetable oil doesn't work that way. It sits there, heavy and greasy, dulling your taste buds and quietly leaving you wanting more. Arnott's is owned by Campbell, an American corporation. The biscuits are made in Australia, but there is almost no transparency about where the cocoa actually comes from or whether it's ethically sourced. At $5 a pack, you're paying for an Australian icon. What you're getting is compound chocolate trading on decades of nostalgia. Number 2. Nestle Kit Kat. Kit Kat is everywhere. Servo counters, vending machines, checkout aisles in every Coles and Woolworths across the country. At around $2 for a 45-gram bar, it feels like one of the most accessible treats in Australia. But accessibility and quality are two very different things, and Kit Kat is a masterclass in the gap between them. Here's the brutal breakdown. The chocolate coating on a Kit Kat contains just 23% cocoa. less than a quarter. Sugar is the first ingredient on the label, not cocoa, not cocoa butter, sugar. Then comes wheat flour, then vegetable fat. Cocoa butter doesn't even show up until fourth on the list. This isn't chocolate coating a wafer. It's confectionery engineered to taste vaguely like chocolate while costing a fraction as much to produce. And the texture tells the story immediately. Real chocolate melts at body temperature. It dissolves smoothly, releasing flavor cleanly. Kit Kat's coating does none of that. It's waxy. It leaves a greasy film on the roof of your mouth because it's mostly vegetable oil and palm fats, not cocoa butter. But the ingredient list isn't even the most disturbing part of the Kit Kat story. That honor goes to Nestle itself. This is the company that has been at the center of child labor controversies for decades. Investigations have traced cocoa in Nestle's supply chain back to farms in the Ivory Coast, where children, some as young as 11, have been found working in dangerous conditions, wielding machetes exposed to toxic pesticides. A lawsuit was filed in 2005. The allegations were never fully resolved. $2 a bar, that's what a Kit Kat costs you at the checkout. But the real price is paid by kids on the other side of the world, harvesting cocoa in conditions no human being should endure. Number 1. Cadbury Dairy Milk. Here it is. The big one. The purple wrapper that has defined Australian chocolate since 1922. Cadbury Dairy Milk isn't just a chocolate bar. It's a memory. It's Saturday afternoons with your mum. It's Easter baskets and school tuck shops and every road trip you've ever been on. For generations, Cadbury meant quality. It meant trust. It meant Australia. So when I tell you what's happened to it, understand that this isn't just another brand on a list. This is a betrayal of something deeply personal. In 2010, Cadbury was acquired by Kraft Foods, which later became Mondelez International, an American multinational headquartered in Chicago. And almost immediately, the recipe started to change. Pull up the ingredient list on a current Cadbury Dairy Milk block, and here's what you'll find. Palm oil, PGPR, that's polyglycerol polyricinoleate, an emulsifier made from castor oil that allows manufacturers to use up to 50% less cocoa butter while keeping the texture smooth. The cocoa content sits at just 26%. Real chocolate should contain at least 35 to 40%. What Cadbury is selling you today doesn't come close. Do a side-by-side comparison. And people have done exactly this, pulling old blocks out of freezers, and the difference is immediate. The old Cadbury snaps cleanly. It melts on your tongue in seconds. The new version? It's waxy. It coats the roof of your mouth. It leaves a greasy chemical residue that lingers. People describe it as tasting cheap, artificial, like something engineered in a lab to imitate the real thing without actually being it. And then there's the ethical dimension. Independent investigations have repeatedly found child labor in Cadbury's cocoa supply chain. Farms in Ghana and the Ivory Coast, where children as young as 5 have been documented working in dangerous conditions, carrying heavy loads, using machetes, breathing in pesticide spray. Mondelez has made promise after promise about cleaning up their supply chain. The investigations keep coming back with the same findings. In 2015, Mondelez shut down the iconic Claremont factory in Tasmania, the very factory that put Cadbury on the map in Australia back in 1921. 450 workers lost their jobs. Production moved overseas. The factory that once symbolized Australian chocolate manufacturing is now a tourist attraction. At $5 for a 180-gram block, you are paying for a brand name. You are paying for a memory. What you are getting is an industrialized product that has been stripped of everything that made it great, and a supply chain that continues to fail the most vulnerable people in the world. Cadbury used to be something worth believing in. What it is now is a masterclass in how corporations hollow out a generation's trust and still sell you the packaging. Before we move on, I need to say something. If everything you've just heard has made you angry, good. You should be angry. This is happening right now in every supermarket across this country, and most Australians have absolutely no idea. So here's what I need you to do. Hit that like button right now, not at the end. Now, share this with everyone you know. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Hit that bell icon. Done. Good. Let's keep going. Now, before I show you the brands that are actually worth buying, let's take 30 seconds to understand why all of this is happening. Because once you get this, everything clicks into place. Real chocolate is built around cocoa butter. It's the fat extracted naturally from the cocoa bean, and it melts at around 34 degrees Celsius, just below body temperature. That's why real chocolate dissolves the second it hits your tongue. Clean. Instant. No residue. But cocoa butter is expensive, and in the Australian summer it blooms and turns chalky. So manufacturers started replacing it with CBEs, cocoa butter equivalents. These are vegetable fats, usually from palm or shea, chemically processed to mimic cocoa butter's properties. They're cheaper and more shelf-stable, but they don't melt at body temperature. That's where the waxy, greasy mouthfeel comes from. Add PGPR into the mix, an emulsifier that cuts cocoa butter content by up to 50%, and you have the formula behind nearly every mass-market chocolate bar in Australia. Now you know what to look for. Let's talk about the brands that are still doing it right. Number 4. Aldi Moser Roth. This one surprises people. Aldi isn't known for premium quality, but Moser Roth is a genuine exception. It's manufactured in Germany, which means European chocolate standards, significantly stricter than what Australia requires. The dark chocolate sits between 70 and 85% cocoa. The ingredient list is short and honest. Cocoa mass, cocoa butter, sugar, vanilla, no palm oil, no filler. At $3 for 125 grams, roughly $2.40 per 100 grams, this is real chocolate at a price that actually makes sense. The 85% dark is genuinely impressive. If budget matters and you want honest chocolate, start here. Number 3. Paina Organic. Paina is what happens when someone actually commits to doing chocolate properly. This Melbourne-based company uses certified organic cocoa, organic coconut sugar, and organic cocoa butter. No palm oil, no dairy, no refined sugar. The cocoa is sourced from fair trade farms in South America, and Paina is transparent about their entire supply chain. You can trace exactly where the cocoa comes from. The chocolate is raw, meaning the cocoa hasn't been high heat roasted, which preserves more antioxidants. At $16 per 100 grams, it's an investment, not an everyday purchase. But the taste is extraordinary, rich, complex, naturally sweet in a way that refined sugar can never replicate. One square of Paina is more satisfying than an entire block of the brands we talked about earlier. Number 2. Whittaker's. Whittaker's is New Zealand's biggest chocolate maker, and it's one of the best value options in any Australian supermarket right now. They use real cocoa butter across their entire range. No palm oil, no vegetable fat substitutes. Their dark chocolate hits 50 to 72% cocoa, and even the milk chocolate lands at 33%, more than Cadbury can claim. They source from Ghana through Rainforest Alliance certification, which carries strict social and environmental standards, including rules around child labor. They publish sustainability reports. They're transparent. And a 250-gram block costs around $5. That's $2 per 100 grams. Cheaper than Cadbury, better quality than Cadbury, more ethical than Cadbury. Whittaker's is proof you don't need to spend a fortune to eat real chocolate. Number 1. Hayes Chocolates. Everything on this list has been building to this one. Hayes is Australia's oldest family-owned chocolate maker. The Hay family has been crafting chocolate in Adelaide since 1915, and they are still run by the 4th generation today. They are one of the very few bean-to-bar producers left in this country, meaning they import raw cocoa beans, roast them on site, and build the chocolate from scratch. No palm oil, no PGPR, no shortcuts, real cocoa butter, and a century of skill. The moment you put Hayes chocolate in your mouth, you understand the difference. It melts cleanly. It dissolves instantly. Layers of flavor that shift and evolve. No waxy residue, no greasy coating, nothing but the pure, unmistakable taste of chocolate made by people who refuse to compromise. Yes, it costs more. You won't be buying it every week. But Hayes isn't just a chocolate brand. It's proof that real chocolate still exists in Australia. Every time you choose Hayes over something hollow and industrial, you are voting for the food industry this country actually deserves. So here's where we land. The Australian chocolate aisle has been quietly, systematically degraded for years. Corporations bought the brands we grew up trusting, changed the recipes when no one was looking, and replaced cocoa butter with cheap vegetable oils. Palm oil is destroying ecosystems. Child labor persists in supply chains that have had over 2 decades to fix themselves, and shrinkflation has turned once substantial products into shadows of what they were. But you have power here. Every time you reach for Whitaker's or Hayes or Panna, or even Moser Roth instead of the familiar purple wrapper, you are sending a message. You are telling these corporations that Australians aren't as easy to fool as they think. Next time you're in the aisle, flip the block over, read what's in it, look for cocoa butter, avoid compound, and choose wisely. If this video changed how you see the chocolate aisle, hit like and share it with everyone you know. Subscribe, we are not done. Drop a comment telling me which brand shocked you the most. Real chocolate, real ingredients, real honesty. That's what we deserve, and it's about time we started demanding it.